What's poppin', people? Back again for another edition of the Lucrative MMA Betting Show. This weekend, we're gonna make hella money on Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus du Plessis. This is a generational fight. Honestly, this fight is one of the best fights MMA has had in the last 10 to 20 years. I cannot wait for this one. Is DDP gonna be able to weather the early storm and break him late? Is Khamzat Chimaev just that good? Is he gonna go through DDP like a hot knife through butter? You know, I got your back on this one. I'm gonna try and help you make as much money as possible from not only that fight, but the rest of the main card and every single fight on the card. So I ain't gonna go too long on this intro, but I have to mention the debut of Aaron Pico taking on Lerone Murphy. That's an absolute banger of a matchup. If you don't know Aaron Pico, you're about to get to know in this show, because we got highlights of him knocking out everyone and taking them down. But Lerone Murphy is no joke. The guy's on an insane win streak himself. Michael Page taking on Jared Cannonier at 185 pounds is sure to be a banger. I'm picking a knockout in that fight. I'll tell you who very shortly. And Prates coming back. This guy was meant to be the new champion of the division one fight ago. He's taking on Neal, who has always been top 5, top 10 fighter. So boys, I can't wait for this one. Let's not waste any more time. Run the intro and let's get it. What's going on, boys and girls? Welcome back to another edition of the show. We've been absolutely cooking in 2025 and cooking lately. The last week we had a 10-unit weekend. Tatsuro Taira finished Hyun-Sung Park in the second round. We cashed on that in the co-main event. My boy, the problem, Chris Duncan, got it done against Mateusz Rebecki. I told you he would on this very show. I hope you put money on Taira like I told you, and I hope you put money on Chris Duncan like I told you. And for those of you lucky enough to bet on who would win fight of the night, I told you Chris Duncan might win fight of the night or Ribovics will win fight of the night. They both won fight of the night. So yeah, hopefully you cashed on that one, boys. Obviously, by the time you see this, Fluffy and Delidze would have fought for the main event, but I'm recording this before that card, so that's why I say the last card. We smashed that card, won 7 units on it, so we're back again. Let's not waste no more time. Let's get into one of the greatest fights in MMA history, pre-fight, and I'm sure post-fight it will live up to that. So we have Khamzat Chimaev taking on Dricus du Plessis. So Khamzat Chimaev coming into this fight with a record of 14 wins and no losses. Shiny record. There's not many undefeated fighters in the UFC that are fighting for titles. Khamzat is one of them. Dricus du Plessis, on the other hand, has an extensive record of 23 wins and 2 losses. Currently, they've got Khamzat Chimaev as a -200 favorite, with the underdog price tag on Dricus du Plessis coming back at +175. So let's get into it, boys. One of the best fights in MMA history. I can't wait for this one. You know, it's not an easy fight to break down because I can see multiple outcomes happening in the fight, you know, and that's often what happens when you get a high-level fight like this. When you get a champion versus future champion, because I really do think Khamzat at some point is going to win the belt, then you can always see a multitude of outcomes in the same fight, right? And our job as sports bettors is not to pick one specific outcome. It's to go through the fight, find the most likely outcome, then find all the other outcomes, assign a probability to them, and then look at the odds and determine where the value is, right? And I'll break that down a lot more for you as we go through this show. But just to start off, I'm always looking at things for a betting lens and a sports betting angle, not just I think DDP is gonna win, right? But let's break it down with some solid analysis, right? Dricus du Plessis to me is the much better striker on the feet. He has a much more diverse arsenal on the feet. I mean, this guy's throwing spinning back fists. This guy's throwing jumping Superman strikes. This guy's throwing head kicks, body kicks. It was part of the reason I had bet him against Sean Strickland, right? Because I said to myself, Sean Strickland is a great boxer, right? And he's a great wrestler and jiu-jitsu player and he never uses it, but he's basically just a boxer on the feet. He's got a good teep. Dricus du Plessis is going to be throwing a million strikes at him. That's very hard to overcome over 25 minutes, right? And I do feel the same if this fight stays on the feet for Khamzat Chimaev. Like if this is a kickboxing fight for 25 minutes, DDP is going to win the fight, man. Is he going to finish him? I don't know. He's got elite power. He could finish him. But I don't know if he will. Khamzat seems to have an elite chin and elite durability and will to win himself, right? So I'd probably pick a decision, but I definitely would pick DDP confidently. But this is an MMA fight, right? And so he's gonna have to deal with Khamzat Chimaev's wrestling. And it's probably the best example of wrestling we've ever seen in UFC history. You know, that is my true opinion. Now, you know, I'm sure people out there are gonna be like, oh, this guy's a better credentialed wrestler. At the end of the day, man, Khamzat Chimaev is a force that we've almost never seen before in MMA. You know, and I think that taking down Kamaru Usman the way he did, dominating him on the mat the way he did, taking him down in every single round the way he did, proves to me, and should prove to everyone else, this is the best wrestler that we've ever seen in MMA. As long as he's got his gas tank underneath him, he's the best wrestler. No one is better than him. But not only is he a good wrestler, because that would be overlooking a lot of his other skill set, and I don't want to do that here, right? Not only is he a good wrestler, he has elite jiu-jitsu for MMA. You know, the way he uses it. He reaps the leg when he takes you up against the cage, heavy pressure into the cage, takes the back very fast, very quick. And not only that, but he has a wide array of submissions. Now, I've only really seen the rear naked choke and the DAS series, the front headlock series, but I know, like, there's no doubt in me that this guy could snap someone's arm with a straight armbar just out of physicality if they wasn't on his level. You know, there's no doubt in my mind that he could pull a guillotine or a front choke or a ninja choke. Like, I know this guy has that skill set, right? The rear naked choke and the front headlock series is his go-to weapons. Not only that, he has elite ground and pound for MMA, right? So there's multiple other things outside of wrestling that he does good, and that's why he's 14-0 undefeated. Now, I want to touch on the Kamaru Usman fight, which I mentioned earlier, right? A lot of people after that fight said that Kamaru Usman could have won. What are you on about? Like, where are you? Are you still saying that? Or was it just emotional after the fight because maybe you want an undefeated fight to lose, or maybe you bet on Kamaru Usman? Because that was a clear Khamzat win, in my opinion. It could have been 30-26 to Khamzat. It was a 10-8 in the first round, and he won round 2 and round 3, in my opinion. Round 2 was close. I don't think round 3 was that close. I mean, he took him down and controlled him for a minute and a half. Look, it's not an impossible scorecard to give Kamaru Usman round 2 and round 3. Like, it's not impossible, but it's very unlikely in my opinion, and Khamzat was the clear winner. So that tells me a lot, not only about his skill set, but also about his cardio, also about his will to win, also about his improvements, and also about his striking, because he was never in trouble on the feet, you know. His chin looked fine. Kamaru landed a couple of shots, but nothing crazy. And Khamzat was able to take him down in round 2 and round 3. And we've just seen Kamaru Usman dominate Buckley over 5 rounds as a plus 200 underdog. We bet on him there. I told you to bet on him in this very show. And it shows me that Kamaru still has it, still has insane physicality, even for middleweight where this fight was. And for someone like Khamzat to do what he did against Kamaru, not only 10-8 him in round 1, which is probably the most impressive out of them all, but maybe equally as impressive or just below that is his ability to take Kamaru down in round 2 and round 3. Taking Kamaru down, controlling him for around 7 to 8 minutes of the fight, of a 15-minute fight, is insane, right? It's never happened to Kamaru before. It will never happen to him again, but Khamzat did it, and that's how good he is, right? Now, let's look at Du Plessis. Is he gonna be able to defend that onslaught? First of all, I just don't think so. I don't think you can watch the Kamaru fight and be like, yeah, DDP's going to defend the takedowns. If we go back and look at DDP's career, who's tried to take him down? A couple of fighters have tried to take him down. Obviously, the most notable one where he got completely dominated on the ground was against Derek Brunson. So let's touch on that a little bit. You know, DDP was having some good moments on the feet. So was Brunson. Brunson was able to take him down in that fight and kind of brutalize him. You know, he was able to get in full mount on a failed Dricus Du Plessis takedown. And that was kind of the start of when the whole community used to call DDP a meme, right? Because they saw him get dominated by Brunson in the wrestling. He got taken down multiple times. Brunson, even at one point, took DDP's back. Now, Brunson's a good fighter, he's a good wrestler, but he's not very good at jiu-jitsu itself, right? So he actually fell off the back. But when he fell off the back, he was able to turn it into a takedown over Dricus Du Plessis. Seeing Dricus Du Plessis thrown around the octagon by Derek Brunson in round 1 makes me very confident that Khamzat Chimaev can do the same thing here. Now, I do think DDP has improved since then, but I also think Khamzat has improved since that date, and I think he's improved enough, or he was maybe even already good enough, to replicate that success that Derek Brunson had in round 1. Now, that's not a hot take, right? I think everyone, even people picking Dricus Du Plessis, are still going to believe that Khamzat is going to maybe wreck him in round 1 or maybe even round 2, right? So it's not a hot take. So I guess it really just comes down to, and actually a lot more than this, right? But I guess the common opinion would be, it comes down to, can Khamzat Chimaev get a finish in round 1 or round 2? Because if he doesn't, Dricus Du Plessis has the superior cardio, and I do believe that to be true. But I also think that's a lazy take. You know, I'm hearing a lot of takes where people are saying, it's either Khamzat early or Dricus late, and that's really how the fight's gonna go. Completely disagree, right? First of all, I do think it is Khamzat early, and I think he has a chance to finish Dricus early. But if he doesn't finish him, I don't think he's cooked. I don't think the fight's over. I don't think it's inevitable that Dricus is going to come back and beat him in the later rounds. Like I said, man, you go back and watch the Kamaru Usman fight, he has an argument to win all 3 rounds. In my opinion, there is no argument, really, for Usman to win the 3rd round. Like, he gets controlled for a minute and a half. And the striking is fairly close before that. Yes, some bad body language by Khamzat, you know, when he's shooting takedowns and completely missing them. But I just think judging the round overall, he clearly won, right? So if he's getting takedowns on someone like that in round 3, why can't he do it to Dricus du Plessis? Tell me why. I don't see a reason why. You know, you go back and look at the Sean Strickland fights where he went 5 rounds. The only time Dricus du Plessis went 5 rounds. He's fatigued, you know, he's fatigued. Now he pushes through fatigue very well, but you know who else pushes through fatigue very well? Khamzat Chimaev. You know, so I truly believe that Khamzat is going to be able to push late into this fight. Now, do I think that Dricus is going to win rounds later in the fight? I do think he can win rounds. I do think he probably does win rounds if it gets there, because it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for Dricus to even get there, you know, because as I said, Khamzat is the best 1-round fighter we've ever seen in MMA, right? And he's a pretty good 15-minute and I'm assuming 25-minute fighter as well. So I do feel like, though, the tide will turn at some point. Let's say Khamzat Chimaev gets a 10-8 round 1, wins round 2, or maybe, you know, 10-8 round 1, and then maybe Dricus du Plessis gets round 2 and round 3. But I believe, from what I've seen on tape, and just knowing the mentality and mindset of Khamzat and how much he trains, and again, from what I've seen, I believe that Khamzat will be able to push late. I see him getting a second wind in this fight if the fight goes late. I see him gassing out in round 2 or round 3 and getting a second win and pushing in round 4 and round 5. I'm calling Khamzat Chimaev to win one of the championship rounds, if not both of them, if it gets there. Now, this may be a hot take, right? This is a hot take, because I guess it's like du Plessis is going to kill him if it gets out of round 2. I just don't believe that, guys. So, look, I can't tell you exactly how the fight's going to play out, but my opinion is going to be a lot different from most people's this week. I think Dricus is going to stay safe in round 1 and round 2, but I do think he's going to get butchered. I think Khamzat is going to take him down. I think Khamzat is going to maul him. I think Khamzat may lock in a rear naked choke. Dricus du Plessis is going to have to, you know, flat back against the mat, turn it out of the rear naked choke, and then he's probably going to get ground and pounded. As I said, some of the best ground and pound in the sport. So I think Khamzat is going to have big moments early. I think it's going to look bad for Dricus du Plessis. I don't know how Dricus is going to come back from that. You know, like, imagine his face is bust open, cut open from cuts. Like, he just got 10-8'd. I don't know how he's going to respond. From what I've seen in certain fights, like the Derek Brunson fight, and maybe some other fights where it wasn't looking too good for him, like Darren Till in the second round when he come back in round 3. I'm pretty confident he's gonna, you know, respond well to that. But still, if your eyes bust open, if you're gassed out from getting thrown on your head, like, you may not perform optimally after that. So I think that he will survive. And like I say, maybe he wins round 2 or round 3 or round 4. But I believe that Khamzat also wins some of those later rounds, right? And I'm predicting the fight to go to a decision. I think Khamzat Chimaev is going to win a decision. 48-47 type fight. You know, maybe it's 2-2 going into round 5 and Khamzat dogs it out, gets a takedown, takes his back and proves why he is the deserved champion. Maybe it's 3-1 Khamzat going into round 5 and Dricus du Plessis is pouring it on, but he can't get a finish because Khamzat is so tough. Something like that. That's how I see the fight playing out. I'm not ruling out a first round or second round finish for Khamzat. He's that good. It would be stupid to. Right? Khamzat to win in round 1 and round 2 is almost like an auto bet anytime he fights. But I think the more likely outcome, the way I see it, is that he dogs out a decision in an absolute classic. People are calling it fight of the year. That's my dream prediction, right? But overall, when we're speaking about betting, money lines, I think Khamzat Chimaev at -200 is the money line side. You know, I know a lot of people are going to be on Dricus du Plessis this week, and I completely understand it. And I'm willing to be wrong, standing in front of someone as good as Dricus du Plessis. I've never bet against him before. I've only ever bet on him when the entire market was underrating him. -400 favorite, Robert Whittaker, +300 underdog. I bet on him, right? I bet on him in multiple fights. Bet on him against Sean Strickland. I think he's a great fighter, but I think Khamzat is better. And I think Khamzat is going to win this weekend. And boys, if you've been following my YouTube channel, all my social medias, you know right now I'm out in Las Vegas, Nevada, land of the free, home of the brave. Shout out to all my Americans. I love you all. And I actually have someone to bring on the camera, a little cameo. If you've been seeing me, we've been going to the PI, we've been going to the Apex, and it's my man Zar. If you know my weekly show, Parlay Madness, we have that every single week on this YouTube channel. And I do it with my man JB, and I do it with my man Zar. I got Zar with me right now, so I'm gonna bring him in for a cameo, and he's gonna give his take on the main event, Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus du Plessis. All right, bro, showtime. Brother Zar, welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks for having me, bro.
So we got a crazy, crazy fight coming up this weekend, Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus du Plessis. We've actually tape studied it together.
Yeah.
Or some of it. So I kind of know your thoughts, but the people don't know your thoughts, so please tell us.
Yeah, so I think that Chimaev, I'm picking Chimaev to win. And I get why he's the favorite, because I think we all know the early rounds are going to be pretty sketchy for DDP. So if you have to go through hell early and, it's going to get sloppy and competitive late, I don't really know how, you're not the underdog. Like, I think there's big finishing upside early for Chimaev. And then late, I'm not super confident that's like Chimaev's going to be death gas and, DDP's going to cook him. Like, I don't think there's like crazy, like concrete evidence that that's going to happen. Chimaev slows down, but he's not death gassing. Like round 3 against Usman, he's still working, getting takedowns. Against Burns, that was a war, and he was walking Burns down, throwing shots. Like, he's got a crazy will to win. He's got heart. And he's got a chin, that's for sure. Chimaev could definitely finish him early. And if he doesn't, I think it's going to be competitive, like you said. And I think we both agree that this is like a sleeper fight to go the distance, because both guys are super durable, have crazy heart. DDP's going to be in some tough positions, but he's a dog, and so is Chimaev. So yeah, I think DDP could be a little bit more hesitant on the feet. He kind of goes crazy, rushes in, throwing crazy combinations. And he's been recently fighting strikers. Ever since the Brunson fights, been mostly strikers where he's got to open up, and he kind of has the grappling threat, and that's definitely not going to be the case here. So I'm interested to see how DDP does on the feet, how much he can open up. I feel like on the feet it could be a little bit more competitive than everyone thinks. Like, Chimaev can crack. So yeah, I'm picking Chimaev probably by early finish, or a super competitive decision, like a war. Like, maybe it's not the most technical fight, but it's definitely gonna be entertaining,
Yeah.
late. So yeah, that's my prediction.
Yeah, sorry lads, we didn't have like a opposing take. It would have been fun, we could go back and forth, but it is what it is. We see what we see on tape, and we just have to give our opinion. But I will ask you, do you think the mind games are going to play at all in this fight? Because obviously they both have elite mindsets for the game, right? Dricus du Plessis has a crazy mindset, one of the best I've ever seen in the sport. The guy never seems rattled. And Chimaev's a little bit of a hothead, chilling with Darren Till and stuff like that. I usually don't take the mind games into play too much in MMA betting. I don't know if you do. We never really spoke about it, but do you? And then secondly, do you think the mental aspect of this fight week will play a part in the fight at all?
It's tough because DDP, he's not scared to try to get under your skin. He'll try to find the most messed up thing possible to say.
Bro, you think your dad beat the shit out of you? Your dad doesn't have shit on me.
With Chimaev's style, it's like he kind of comes out hot round 1 trying to kill you anyway. So I feel like he's going to do that no matter what. Yeah. Maybe there's a bigger adrenaline dump because he really hates DDP and, slows down even more. But both guys are crazy. The press conference is going to be fun because DDP is going to be cooking.
Can't wait for that one. Well, bro, thanks for coming on. Hopefully we can cash some money if we bet on this fight. And I'm going to get on with the rest of the card now, bro.
Appreciate you.
Respect, bro. All right, let's go. The next fight of the night, we got Lerone Murphy taking on the debutant, Aaron Pico. So currently, Lerone Murphy has a record of 16 wins, no losses, and 1 draw. Aaron Pico has a record of 13 wins and 4 losses. Currently, they got Aaron Pico as a -150 favorite with the underdog price tag on Lerone Murphy coming back at +130. This is a banger of a matchup. I have been waiting for Aaron Pico's debut for a long time. Now, I don't exactly know how he's going to respond to the UFC jitters. We just saw a very high-level fighter come over from Bellator himself, which was Patchy Mix, take on Mario Batista. And in that fight, I can't lie, he definitely seemed to suffer from some debut jitters. And it happens all the time throughout UFC history. Even fighters I have spoke to tell me that they was badly struggling with UFC debut jitters. So is it going to happen to Aaron Pico? I would like to say no, and the reason I would like to say that is because, man, if you guys remember, Aaron Pico's debut in Bellator was one of the most hyped up MMA debuts of all time. It may have been the #1 hyped MMA debut of all time throughout the entire history of MMA. I don't know how hyped up Brock Lesnar's one was because I wasn't around, but I do know how hyped up Aaron Pico's one. And let me tell you, man, it was crazy. Like, the guy was a -1,000 favorite, -2,000, something like that. They brought in Zach Freeman to basically be a body that Aaron Pico would go through. He was a national Golden Gloves boxing champion as well as a wrestling champion. This guy was meant to be the future of MMA. And I don't know whether it was debut jitters or not, but he got finished in that fight, right? He got clubbed and submitted. So the reason I bring that up is to say, like, he's already gone through fights where he's been extremely hyped. Like the eyeballs on him have been massive. And yes, there'll be massive, you know, on this pay-per-view, in a co-main event slot, in Chicago, with all those fans coming to watch one of the best fights of all time in DDP and Khamzat Chimaev. There will be pressure, but I feel like he's been facing pressure his entire life. You know, not only with that debut in Bellator, like I mentioned, but also with some of his other fights. And like I said, he was a national Golden Gloves boxing champion. I mean, that's pressure himself. He's been in the limelight in the wrestling since he was a child, as well as the boxing. So he's been known as a child prodigy. He's been dealing with this pressure his entire life. I feel like he'll come in and deal with it well, but again, it's basically a guess. You never truly know, and even the fighters themselves probably don't know. You know, I'm pretty sure Patchy Mix didn't think debut jitters would take a toll in his fight. Did they? I don't know. It seemed like they did, but we can't say for sure. But I mean, the guy was as confident as I've ever seen anyone before a UFC fight. When he fought, he didn't look like that, right? So it's impossible to know. But if all things are equal, if Aaron Pico comes in here and there's no UFC debut jitters, I think he beats Lerone Murphy soundly. Like, Aaron Pico is one of the greatest fighters I've ever seen with my eyeballs. And what I mean by that is he hasn't faced the level of competition that he will face in the UFC. This guy has not faced anyone near the level of competition that even Lerone Murphy has faced. This guy has not faced the top featherweights in the country, let alone the world. He just hasn't faced them, right? Because Bellator didn't have those fighters. Now, he's definitely fought some solid fighters like Adam Borix and Jeremy Kennedy. And he lost both those fights, by the way. One of those was with an injury, a shoulder injury, but Jeremy was doing well in that fight. But obviously we didn't get to see it play out. And the Adam Borix one, again, he was kind of dominating him with the wrestling, and he got unlucky in that fight as well because he got caught, but he did get finished, and that was a clean finish, right? But outside of that, he hasn't really fought the level of competition that he needs to be fighting for me to call him the greatest fighter in the world. But I will say that he does look like one of the greatest fighters in the world so far. And just based on that, I have to pick him over Lerone Murphy. Aaron Pico has elite wrestling, elite boxing, and elite cardio, honestly. I mean, the pace this guy pushes, it's almost impossible that he doesn't gas out. But man, he doesn't really gas out. Like, even if he gasses out, he pushes through. Now, I've only seen him in 3-round fights. Most of the time, he's just finishing the fight in round 1 or 2 anyway, but I've seen him go to a decision now multiple times, and he's looked good in the decision in those fights. Like, he's pushing through heavy. I've seen him get 3rd-round finishes, so I'm not worried about his cardio, which is kind of crazy because the amount of muscle mass he has, the amount of power shots he throws, the amount of power moves he does. I mean, his takedowns, very, very technical, very, very good single legs specifically, but he will also power double, slam you, body slam, suplexes. I mean, the guy does it all right, and a lot of the things he does, it takes a lot of energy, right? So to see him pushing in round 3 like it's round 1 or 2, it's very, very impressive. And that's why I'm calling the guy one of the greatest MMA fighters I've ever seen. Now, I'm hoping that ends up being true because, guys, this is something I'll let you know as well. Like, the guy can look amazing, right? But if he hasn't faced super high level of competition, you never can be 100% sure that the guy you've seen in your tape study or your research or in their previous fights is going to continue to be that guy as they step into the upper echelon of the division. Like someone like Ilia Topuria coming up. He looked like the goods, right? He looked like the truth. But you never know that when he fights Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira, is he still going to look like that guy? When they still look like that guy, that's when you know you have, you know, a phenom on your hands. And Ilia Topuria proved to be that. But we've seen time and time again, fighters not proved to be that. I mean, Darren Till, you know, comes to mind. Darren Till, very good fighter, but when he fought Tyron Woodley, he didn't really perform in that fight. You know, he was a favorite in that fight, right? He was a favorite, he was a challenger, and he was favorite against Tyron Woodley because of the unknowns, because we didn't know what level Darren Till was at. We thought he could be special, we thought he could be really good, but we wasn't 100% sure, right? And obviously he had some setbacks after the Tyron fight and including the Tyron fight. So it's very hard to take these steps ups in competition and keep on winning. But I don't think Lerone Murphy is a Movsar Evloev, you know, to which we was meant to get that fight a week ago or whenever it was, and we didn't get it. I think Lerone Murphy is one tier down, so it's a good introduction to the division because you need to give him a good fight. You can't give him the best fighter in the division straight up. I mean, they kind of tried to do that with Movsar Evloev, at least he's top 2 or 3, right? But Aaron Pico really reminds me of that new meta in the featherweight division, to where they're kind of short for the division, very stocky, very built, very heavy muscles, and they're extremely fast twitch, and they're extremely physical, right? And that's basically what Aaron Pico is. That's what Ilia Topuria is. That's what Kevin Vallejos is. That's what Gene Silva is. To some degree, that's what Diego Lopez is, but not so much. But those 4 guys I mentioned there, they seem like the new era of the featherweight. I know Ilia's moved up to lightweight now, but I think you get what I'm saying. And definitely Aaron Pico fits that bill, right? Lerone Murphy is a great fighter in his own right. You know, he's very, very good in scrambles. He's got a very high will to win. I've seen him be dropped. I mean, the Dan Ige fight, he got dropped massively with a counter. It was like a hook, overhand type shot. When Lerone Murphy threw a strike, Dan Ige was able to come underneath it, counter with a huge shot. And Lerone Murphy ended up winning that fight somehow, right? He won round 2 and round 3. So we know he's got the will to win. If you go back and watch the Makwan Amakani fight, I mean, he's getting grappled for the entire round 1. It's not looking good for him. And then he lands a beautiful flying knee. So the guy definitely has the will to win. He's got great cardio. You know, he can go 5 rounds. We've seen that in his last fight. He can grapple, he can strike, he can really do it all. And I'd even say that he has a wider arsenal in MMA than Aaron Pico does, but I think Aaron Pico is way more effective. And seeing Lerone Murphy dropped and hurt, the amount of times I've seen, I'm not saying it's like a crazy amount of times, but it's enough for me to think that Aaron Pico can land his shots. Aaron Pico has some of the best body shots in the entire sport. He reminds me of Jack Della Maddalena in that realm, and man, he could definitely snatch Lerone Murphy's liver here. He can also take him down. This is a big thing that we need to speak about. Like I said, Aaron Pico has great takedowns, amazing single legs, very good technical takedowns, but also explosive takedowns as well. So yeah, I really think that Lerone Murphy is a little bit outmatched here, which is crazy considering his level of competition and the fighters he has beat before, but that's just how I see the fight. Like I said, it's a debut. You can't 100% put all your eggs in one basket on the Aaron Pico side here because it is a debut. It is a debut, and he's never fought this level of competition before. Lerone Murphy would be his best win by far in his career if he does it, and it's his UFC debut. So it's a tough ask, but it's an ask that I believe Aaron Pico will surpass. So I'm picking Aaron Pico to win this fight. KO or decision, I don't really know. Lerone Murphy's tough, but it's going to be hard to dog out those rounds where Aaron Pico is either taking you down and smashing you from top position or landing heavy boxing combinations on your body and head. So yeah, tough one for me to pick the actual outcome, or I should say tough one for me to pick the method of victory, but not really a tough one for me to pick who the victor will be. In my opinion, that's Aaron Pico. Next fight of the night, we got Jared Cannonier taking on Michael Page. So, Jared Cannonier coming into this fight with a record of 18 wins and 8 losses, while Michael Page has a very extensive and shiny record of 23 wins and only 3 losses. Michael Page is the -175 favorite with the underdog price tag on Jared Cannonier coming back at +150. Interesting fight. You know, I feel like Jared Cannonier is on his way out. You know, the guy's 41 now, so he's fighting into his 40s. He's not approaching 40, which is bad enough. The guy is already in his 40s and a year past that, and he's still fighting. So of course he's on his way out. But you could say the same for Michael Page. He's 38 years old. But something I do want to mention is that fight years and your actual official age are 2 different things. And I know Michael Page has more fights than Jared Cannonier, but Jared Cannonier has definitely taken a lot more damage than Michael Page, meaning that not only is he older, but he's older in fight years, you know, which is not a good sign. I mean, Jared Cannonier is getting hurt a lot more lately, and coming up against Michael Page, it could be trouble, man. I mean, if we go back and look at Jared Cannonier's record, Gregory Rodriguez fight, hurt badly in the early rounds, hurt very badly. The Kai Bahayo fight, it could be the worst one of them all, actually. It is the worst one of them all, and it's the only one that he lasted to a decision. Kai Bahayo had him on death's door in round 5. I don't understand how that fight wasn't stopped. I mean, I do understand it, but I don't necessarily agree with it. But he got dropped brutally in round 5, and I thought the fight would be over. I mean, the way he slumped to the ground was kind of scary to see. You know, the amount of damage he sustained in that 5-round fight was significant, man. And then you go back to the fight before that, Nassourdine Imavov, smashed in that fight, you know, hurt badly, rocked badly. And a lot of people moaned at the stoppage. But let's remove the stoppage. Let's not talk about the stoppage for now because it doesn't add anything to my point. Right? I'm not making the point of the stoppage. I'm making the point of the damage he took. Insane. Imavov cracked him badly, had him wobbling badly. Who knows? If the fight continued, Imavov, in my opinion, probably would have still finished him because that's how badly he was hurt. Worst case scenario, it's probably a 10-8 and the guy's down going into round 5. The fight before that, Marvin Vettori. We see one of the worst beatdowns we've ever seen. Jared Cannonier beating on Marvin Vettori, and Marvin Vettori still manages to hurt him badly in that fight. So it's like every single fight, the guy is getting hurt badly by fighters who don't even hit that hard in Marvin Vettori. And fighters who are not known for knockouts, like Marvin Vettori and Kai Bahayo. Now, I think Kai hits a little bit harder, but I also believe that he's not really finishing that many people. And man, I mean, like I said, it could have been stopped, right? And maybe it should have been stopped. So it's hard for me to ignore this guy getting hurt so much. Just like every fight, the guy's getting hurt. We go back and look at Michael Venom Page, and this guy's hardly ever getting hurt because he doesn't fight like that, right? And that's why I say Jared Cannonier's fight years are so different than Michael Page's fight years, even though there's only a 2 or 3 year age gap between them. There's like a 10-year age gap when it comes to the amount of damage they have taken. And that's basically a very similar thing to fight years itself. So yes, they're only 2 or 3 years apart, but in reality, these guys are 10 years apart. Michael Page has very, very good striking, elite striking. We saw what he did to another very good striker in the division, in Shara Magomedov. Shara Bullet got pieced up for 3 rounds by Michael Page. Michael Page played with Kevin Holland on the feet, make him look silly on the feet. And he's done this to many guys throughout his entire career. It doesn't matter how good of a striker you are, you're going to get exposed if you fight Michael Venom Page if you can't grapple him. That's where the deficiencies have come for Michael Venom Page. You go back and look at the Logan Storley fight. You even go back and look at the winning Kevin Holland fight in round 2. He gets taken down, he gets his back taken, a rear naked choke is put on. Now, it's not really close, but it is put on. You go back and look at the Ian Gary fight. Again, a rear naked choke is put on. It's not very close, but it's put on. And the grappling won Ian Gary the fight there. So you can definitely take him down. You can hold him down, and if you do that, you can win. That leads me to believe Jared Cannonier will do that. If we go back and look at Jared Cannonier's last couple of fights, he is using the clinch a lot more, right? He is clinching his fighter up. He used to be a 100% striker, but now he's a veteran now. He's clinching his fighter up, he's landing shots, and he did that mainly in the Imavov fight. You know, he kind of sold out for the clinch there. He gassed himself out by holding Imavov in the clinch, and that's why he was finished. It wasn't necessarily because Imavov landed a great shot. It was because Jared Cannonier was very tired, and so Imavov could show off his elite striking, and he cracked him there. So I feel like Jared Cannonier is going to try and grapple here. I just don't see him having success with it because, first of all, he's not a grappler by trade. So it's not like he's going to be blast double legging with amazing accuracy. Michael Venom Page is probably going to have to get him up against the clinch, probably going to have to shoot for a single, a double, like grind on him. And Michael has fought that style his entire career. Like, even getting to Michael is going to be hard enough. This could be a brutal one-shot KO by Michael Venom Page. I don't think he's a true middleweight, but what I will say is, like, his style can translate there because he's just so skillful. In fact, his style may do even better there because the fighters he's fighting are slower, you know, at middleweight than 170 pounds. I mean, that's a considerable jump, 170 to 185. So, I mean, maybe now the guy's gonna have a speed advantage, which he already had one. Maybe has now a massive speed advantage. Look, my opinion in this fight, Michael Page is gonna crack him on the feet, man. He's either gonna knock him out or he's gonna win via decision by big moments, just like Kai Bahio did, you know? Just like a lot of fighters were on their way to doing before something happened in the fight, like Imavov fight. I feel like Imavov would have cleanly won that fight. I feel like he was on his way to winning via big moments if the fight wasn't stopped. Kai Bahio did win the fight via big moments for the most part. I just feel at 41 years of age, man, your chin's gonna start getting cracked a bit more. It already did, and I feel like we could see it again. I mean, even go back to the Derek Brunson fight many years ago, he got cracked badly in that fight. I just don't see Jared Cannonier surviving these type of fights consistently throughout the course of his career until he retires. I feel like he's really on a downslide now. And yes, he got a win in his last fight, but I feel like Michael Page is going to take him out. I don't think it's an easy fight for Michael Page, but I think it's one where the stylistic nature of it, I just can't see anything else than Michael Page landing big shots at points in this fight. Now, you can never predict the knockout, right? Like, it's easier for me to predict the shot landing, but to predict the actual knockout, shit happens. I mean, you know, fighters look like they're going to get knocked out and then they survive. It happens every week. I bet on unders a lot, so I know that firsthand. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Michael Page. Overall breakdown is that Michael Page is gonna be too slick for him, and I'm gonna go with Michael Page to get a finish, I don't know, inside the first 3 rounds. The next fight we have is Geoff Neal versus Carlos Prates. Very, very high level fight, and I cannot wait for this one. This is a banger of a card, and I mean, we're 4 or 5 fights down the main card, and they're still giving us Geoff Neal versus Carlos Prates. So in this fight, Geoff Neal got a record of 16 wins and 6 losses. Carlos Prates has a record of 21 wins with only 7 losses. Currently, they have Carlos Prates as a -235 favorite with the underdog price tag on Geoff Neal coming back at +200. This is a banger of a fight, guys, and I'm gonna be fully honest, it's hard for me to get a read on this fight. I'm gonna give you my read, and I have a read, and I have a take, and I have an outright prediction, but it's kind of hard because I'm gonna tell you why it's hard. So Carlos Prates is kind of hard to get a read on because the guy is very susceptible to getting punched in the head. You know, like, man, this guy takes shots, and I know that he does that because he believes he can eat them because he has an iron chin, and I'd say so much. He does have an elite chin, right? And he knows that. So he walks forward into range, he gets his face jabbed off, smashed by Ian Gary, hit hard, wobbled by Ian Gary in that fight as well. But, you know, because he has such elite durability and crazy power, which is very rare, Oftentimes you don't have a fighter who has an elite chin and elite power. Like it's a rare combo to have, and it's definitely a winning combo, you know, like someone like Nazim Sadikov, someone like Josh Emmett. A big reason why these guys were able to go to the top 15 of their divisions is because of that, right? They had not only an elite chin so they could tank damage, but they also had elite power. So they take damage and then eventually land a big shot. But going back to Carlos Prates, that's what he does, right? He takes damage if you're good enough to give it to him. He's still a good Muay Thai striker, so, you know, his head movement is decent and he's definitely a very educated striker, so he can avoid shots. But for the most part, he's going to get tagged in most of his fights until he knocks you out. And it happens in most fights. I mean, you go back and watch that Trevin Giles fight, he's getting clipped, you know, until he lands a big shot. You go back and watch the Ian Gary fight, like he's getting clipped until he lands the big shot. And it's still not enough to win him the decision in that fight because he was outskilled and outmaneuvered and just outmatched in general, you know. Ian Gary he was one step above him. It was one level above Carlos Prates in that fight. But man, Prates is still dangerous. Like he still cracked Gary badly. Like he's always going to be dangerous. You could put him up against Shavkat Rakhmonov. You could put him up against Jack Della Maddalena. You could put him up against Bilal Muhammad. Like it doesn't matter who he fights. He's always going to be dangerous because he's that skilled of a striker and he has that true power and that true durability. So you ain't just going to run through him in round one. Consistently at least. So that's why I kind of struggle in this fight because I see Geoff Neal, you know, piecing him up at times. I see Geoff Neal landing strikes. I see Geoff Neal getting his reads early. I see that left hand from southpaw landing straight down the pipe. You know, we see Trevin Giles land a lot of the same shots that I see Geoff Neal landing, but I see Prates making his reads. I see Prates stepping through with that beautiful knee that he throws, that Muay Thai knee, that Diesel Noi knee. I see Prates landing huge shots himself as the fight wears on, as the fight goes late. I see Geoff Neal gassing out a little bit. I see Geoff Neal not enjoying the pressure after round one. I mean, I went back and watched that Vicente Luque versus Geoff Neal fight the other day, and Geoff Neal cooked him in round one, man. Dropped him, wobbled him. I don't think it was an official knockdown. It may have been in round one. I believe it actually was now thinking back to it, but there was a lot of wobbles, boys, so it's hard to remember the exact rounds, but I do believe there was a knockdown in round one. Definitely was a knockdown in the fight, but I believe there was 2 knockdowns in the fight, but maybe round one was the one I'm thinking about. But anyway, like outside of that knockdown, it's just big wobbles, right? And he clearly won round one, but round two, Vicente Luque was kind of cooking. You know, Vicente Luque got back into that fight. Geoff Neal started to slow down a bit. Especially towards the latter half of that fight. It looked like it could be a very close fight going into round 3, and then obviously Geoff Neal just lands the killer blow again, and Vicente Luque kind of learned that he needs to move his head and stuff, to which he hasn't really done throughout his career. So Geoff Neal exposed him there, but what I'm trying to say is he can slow down. You go back and look at the Shavkat Rakhmonov fight. Shavkat finished him in round 3 because he slowed down, right? Neil Magny fight was a long time ago, but he slowed down. Basically, boys, like the guy has slowed down in a lot of fights throughout his career, you know, and I feel like that's going to play into Prates' game, who kind of just builds, gets better as the fight goes on. You know, Carlos Prates is not really a round one knockout guy. You know, he's got elite power, and yeah, he's got a bunch of round one knockouts, but it's because the guys weren't on his level. And even in those fights, they come late, man. 10 more seconds. We're looking at round 2. Look at the Charles Radke fight. 13 seconds away from round 2. Look at the Neil Magny fight. 10 seconds away from round 2. Look at the Trevin Giles fight. 50 seconds away from round 3. Mitch Ramirez was in round 2. Li Jingliang fight. 50 seconds away from round 3. The guy is a cooker. He pressures you. He makes you make mistakes. He lets you wear yourself out. He even lets you land on him. He makes reads. Very elite, educated, smart striker. He's got Muay Thai tattooed on him. This guy is a high-level striker. Now, you can expose Muay Thai if you're very good like Ian Gary. Beautiful performance, as I've said before. But I don't think Geoff Neal has the striking acumen to expose Prates over the 15-minute distance. He can win, because I think he can win round 1 and round 2 and round 3. Like, it can be close. But I don't think he has the ability to expose him like Ian Gary did. I don't think he has that skill set. And I think the most likely outcome of this fight is Geoff Neal starts hot and early, and he looks good. Hard and fast early. But Prates makes his reads and puts it on him big time in round 3 and maybe finishes him. More likely goes to a decision because Geoff Neal also has a very good chin with very good power, right? So they kind of have the same skill set in that, right? They both have good chins, good durability, and good power, which is kind of a rarity. So to see this fight in the welterweight division, it's going to be elite. But my official prediction for this one is that Prates is a little bit too skilled for him. You know, Prates is going to make reads, and Prates may drop round 1, but he will come back in round 2. He will come back in round 3, and he will hurt Geoff Neal in this fight. And overall, he will just land the better, more eye-catching strikes, and he'll either get a knockout or a decision win. All right, boys, we've got to near the end of the video, so now I'm going to plug my service. Sublaunch.com/lucrativemma is where you can get access directly to me and my VIP group chat. Not only that, all of my official bets for this card and the card moving forward. I have a massive bet on this card, close to a max bet. Not actually a max bet, but it's a big bet, one that I'm very confident on. I'm gonna have lots of bets on this pay-per-view. You also get access to my long shot parlays and long shot prop bets. We just cashed Pullaev in round 2, and we had Klein in round 1 as well, an elite read in the long shot prop section not too long ago. You also get my full card breakdowns at the end of the week, which means I've done all of my research and these are my official final thoughts, because boys, I could change my thoughts, right? I'm still gonna do more tape study. This is Thursday. We're like 12, 11 days out from the fight. I'm gonna do way more research and update my bets, my predictions, my breakdowns. And if you sign up on sublaunch.com/lucrativemma, you'll get access to all of that. You also get to support me, help me making all these cool content pieces that I've been making. I got an interview out with Chris Duncan 48 hours after his fight with Mateusz Rebecki on this very YouTube channel. Make sure you go and watch that and support if you haven't done yet. But I'm gonna give you a chance to join my service for free right now. So all you need to do is comment down below. You'll be automatically entered into next week's draw if you leave a good comment, and I'm gonna pick one random person to win the draw and give you 1 month free of my Lucrative MMA Elite Zone. We did this last week and a bunch of people joined, so let's spin the Lucrative Wheel of Fortune right now and see who has won for this week. All right, lads, I'm spinning the Wheel of Fortune now. Let's go. Lots of names as always. It keeps growing every single week. Let's see who it's gonna land on. All right, there we are, Deshi Boy. Deshi Boy, congratulations. All you need to do is email me lucrativebettingtips@hotmail.com after you have commented down below saying, yo, I won. Screenshot that, send it to me. I'm gonna verify you, make sure it is your profile that's actually sending that email, because I've bookmarked your profile. I've got it up on my tab right now. I can see the comments you make and I'll get you in. But boys and girls, don't worry. If you didn't win this week, make sure you comment down below. And even if you're in my service, even if you sign up to my service, you still get an extra month for free. I'll just add on a free month. So like I said, sublaunch.com/lucrativemma will get you direct access to all of my bets and everything I mentioned. And that's it. Let's have ourselves a massive weekend this week. I made a hell of a lot of videos with a hell of a lot of UFC fighters recently. All of those videos will be out on my social medias, including this YouTube channel soon. And make sure you tune in to Parlay Madness, which goes down this week, Thursday at 8:30 p.m. ET time, where we break down the entire card, not only the main card, and we have a lot of fun on that card. So that's it. Let's make some money at UFC 319. Peace and love.